Mick, you and corruption, Jack Herbert and his colleagues, explain what was known in those days as the joke.
The joke was well known in the police force, and I still believe that at that time, 90% of the police were well aware of what was going on. If they didn't want to be involved in it, they didn't take any money, but they were all well aware of it. And Jack Herbert, as I said to you, he ran that squad. There was an inspector and a senior sergeant above him, but he ran that squad. Every job that was done was run through Jack. So if the job went bad, there was only one person that could have stuffed it up, and it was Jack. But Jack never stuffed up any jobs. You did. You had the wrong information. That's how it went. If you were on the pay, and most of the time the young fellows in the office, as I said, they were hand-picked. Jack would have a horse every Saturday that would run. Nobody ever knew the name of that horse. It was $10 at 10 to 1. Every Monday morning, everyone in the office received $100. And those days, $100 was a lot of money, as you appreciate, because I was paying $85 a month in my mortgage, so $100 a week wasn't bad at all. But look, there was a couple of us that looked at it and we thought, no, we're not taking it. And one of the blokes that didn't take it, he was only there as a trainee. Actually, he's due to retire soon. He works in Steamthorpe. But we didn't take it, and as a result, life was hell from word go. He would make sure that you wouldn't do any jobs. He would make sure that you wouldn't go with him, and he would make your life miserable. If you had an informer, he'd have someone to follow you, see who it was. And if you were paying the informer $10, Jack would offer him $50. That way the informer would say, this is what I've told him, and you'd give the information back to Jack, and it was always, and it was just a good organisation that he had. He's obviously been doing it long before I joined the police force. And the powers to be definitely had no doubts in their mind what was going on, because you just don't have money like Jack used to have. He'd go to the hotel on a Friday afternoon like most people do, and as Cole said, you go and have a beer with the boys. You'd go there and Jack would throw $100 on the bar. And if all the other coppers were there on Jack's wages, he couldn't afford $100 on the bar. But he didn't finish there, he'd throw another 100, and then someone would shout one shout, which would be $20, and then Jack would throw another 100. So if the other coppers didn't know that the corruption was existing, there is something wrong in the system.
And he would, for a time, come and in his Monday morning distribution of the winnings, he'd put your $100 on the desk and you would leave it sitting there.
Actually, it's quite humorous that I used to leave that, and the fellow that I was working with, he was in higher in rank than me. They made sure that they'd always work a senior man to you. In other words, if you were going out on a job, you'd have to do what the senior man told you, so you'd have to be under his control. And the bloke I was working with would say, are you taking your 100? And I'd say, no. He'd say, that's great, I'm paying my house twice as quick. Shortly after the Fitzgerald inquiry happened, they charged a number of police, and this fella, they charged him. He was the last person to be charged, and I thought, Jesus, they're going to call me to give evidence. They never called me to give evidence, and he was found not guilty. And he made no secret all through his career that he was copping the 100, and he was telling everyone, Mick doesn't want his 100, I'll take his. He made no secret, he'd tell every other copper in town, you know. And they charged him, and as I said, he was found not guilty.
Now you obviously gravitated to the extent that you were able to find it to other honest police, and in fact there were several of you who were trying to wage your own war against crime and trying to thwart the efforts of those who were corrupt inside the force. And you must have been successful to some degree, because I want to ask you now about the Southport bookie case, because that was their way of trying to get you.
Well, the famous at Southport bookie case, there was a change of guards in the licence, and they transferred some that they thought that really were bad on the take, and they bought this fella by the name of Con Horgan, completely nice bloke, but a complete raw recruit. He was a sergeant, but he had nothing to know about licensing, like prostitution, game and all that. It's a field on its own, and it takes ages to understand. It's not a matter of saying there's a prostitute and you can't arrest it. It's just a little bit more complicated. But they put Con Horgan to work with me and for me to teach him and all that. And we got to ourselves in a way, and then the two big SP bookies in Queensland were working from Orchard Avenue down the coast. So we raided the place, but we were 2 minutes late. Mr. Big himself was outside having a cigarette when we arrived. It's unfortunate, but we arrested the other two. And that case has never been to court today. We then moved again and got him over at the New South Wales border they call Razorback up here at Tweed. We sat off the joint and they were taking bets in New South Wales. They came across Coolangatta, we pulled them up. We arrested him, we got Mr. Big, we got his juniors, and we arrested him. Now that's the biggest downfall of my life, because shortly after that, Jack Herbert was arrested for graft and corruption, including about 6 other policemen, including probably 4 or 5 SB bookies. They were all arrested for graft and corruption. So Jack, by this stage, had resigned from the police force, medically unfit. He said he was dying of cancer.
He was still running it, wasn't he?
He was still running it from outside the police force, yeah. The only cancer Jack had was a few sunspots, which, but he told those days, I think we were all naive about cancer those days, and he told everyone he was dying, he had a short time to live. But he was running the pencil and collecting the money off all the brothels and the gaming. So he then got a couple of the police inside, still working with us, that were corrupt, to set us up. And when the evidence in the famous SP court came, the policeman produced 3 tape recordings of the conversation we had in the office in private. And as a result, the bookies were found not guilty. We appealed, and the judge found that our evidence was tainted with illegality. That's what the judges said. And then they had the Lucas inquiry. And Mr. Justice Lucas said that the evidence was tainted with illegality and we should be charged, arrested and put away. And
but you did at least have a moment of satisfaction where you really let loose on what was going on inside the Queensland Police Force, although nothing at the time came of it, right?
Well, I put in a 15-page report to the Assistant Commissioner at the time. I typed it at home because I couldn't do it at work, and I handed it to him personally to tell him of all the places and all the raids that we were doing, and there were negative results. And to this day, I have never received a reply from the Assistant Commissioner. Now, I don't know if he's still alive, but I have never received a reply on those raids. But look, Fitzgerald had the inquiry. Jack Herbert was in England. He came back and said that what we said in the famous SP case was the truth, and the police and himself lied. And it's been a God blessing in one respect, but it hasn't grown my hair back because I lost that in 6 months shortly after the Southport case.
And I would imagine for the rest of your time in the police force, and you did stay on for a number of years, that there would have always been a certain number of cops who would have regarded you with suspicion.
That never came off me. The suspicion was never off me. It doesn't matter what I went to, some of the blokes would say he was involved in telling lies at Southport, he was crooked. A lot of the police, even today, wouldn't have a clue what went on. They wouldn't have a clue that the Southport case wasn't about us being crooked. It was about Jack Herbert, the bagman, and his team of men, and the Commissioner and the Minister, and it goes on.